I'm up looking at a new potential barn to use along with a 14 to 15 acre hayfield. So I'm taking these videos for my own notes. Here is the upper loft at the barn. No pulling vehicles or wagons into the barn, so pulling it up to the edge or pushing it up to the edge. They do have electrical hookup for hay elevators. Some hay storage in the loft here is okay, so long as they have plenty of room to get past. Also, it sounds like maybe up top there could be a possibility with some stuff being moved. Lots of really good airflow here. And then this whole hay pit. But there's like 3 feet of hay chaff here from over the years. And in walking down in it, it all feels great. It's super dry. It smells fine. So the idea of, hay storage down here, it's different than I usually do. And question of, throwing it back up here for customers or having people pull down around where you can see that tractor parked. There's a way to get hay out that door. So it'd take a little bit of creative thinking, especially for a lot of hay. But at least there's a spot under a good new metal roof to put it. So now I'm down in the hay pit. And yeah, it's interesting thinking of a pit, but this barn is on a hillside. So she said there is a wood floor down here underneath it all. And again, the hay feels nice and dry. It's not an outrageous toss up to the floor here, especially because whoever would be picking up hay wouldn't be able to back their vehicle in here anyway. So we'd be going to the door. So trying to think, this space actually looks a lot nicer over here, but that's farther from this door. So something to think about, micro logistics. But then we have that way and through toward the horses. There's a legit basketball court through there. But then this door, which also, could be a way to get hay out and to somebody through that door. So options. Oh yeah, and here's the hayfield. It goes way down over that ridge. A few rocks, but it's like 14 to 15 acres. Not even including what's on the other side of this fence line. And the owner sounds really flexible about, me doing my best to get on whatever I can, and whatever I can't, they said they can brush hog. So I think a lot of it is, getting what maintenance they can out of it, and also, I think, kind of, having this as a, management tool, and flexibility. And then we'll look at this from the other side, but this is a whole lean-to area that has some equipment in it. There's a partition, but the other side's pretty open, that they're open to me parking hay wagons in. So not just having hay storage, but actually a place to park wagons under cover be pretty crucial for a situation like this. So coming from the field toward the lean-to, she said she just needs heads up to keep the horses fenced away from the access to it. Little bit of undulation here. She said it can get a little wet sometimes in wetter years, so that's something to think about. But she said plenty of space. They would always back the wagons in. I'd have to experiment a little bit with whether I back them in or whether I swing wide, drop the wagon. We'll look in there. Always wanted to be careful about tippiness on a full wagon, but I think this is pretty doable. I've done crazier things. One piece of note also is that this field hasn't been fertilized for a couple years, which I think tracks with what I've seen. So there is good clover in it. She said it's finer grasses, which is also what I've seen. So that's great in terms of quality, dry down, and what people are looking for. And as much as I want high yield, taking something like this on in the first year, it might actually be a little bit of a blessing to have the yield be lower, just to get the footprint figured out and not have an outrageous amount of hay on my hands that I've got to figure out. So, it's a little bit low right now. If I take it on, I got to think about whether I get some, maybe just urea down just to spruce it up a little bit, or whether I try for a nice early first cut, because my house is just that way. You can't see it, but this is after my home field, so this is the next closest farm. I drive past it all the time on that road headed toward town. So, friendly horses. They're like in their 20s, I think. All right, here we are in the lean-to area. Nice new metal roof. Hi, guys. Nice and wide. I need to get a measurement on that, but what I'm curious about is if it's wide enough to get a wagon in and then sneak the tractor back out. I'm not entirely sure that's the case. It's also a little bit uneven here. So I don't know if I would put hyper-full wagons in this. She said it's nice and firm. Maybe they'd be willing to muck out the manure. I suppose that's That's a question. Yeah. And then they move these gates and could have all the way back to there. And then they have their old haying equipment, which these hay binds, yep, 472. You see them everywhere. This one looks like it's in nice shape. The thing I'm really laughing about is here's, I'm assuming a 256. I haven't looked at the number, but maybe 258. I don't know. And then laughing even more because I don't think this is a 510T. I think it's a 410T. Unless it's, oh, let's see. I've got to look at whether it's one of the other off-brand ones. But if I'd known this was here. Okay, yeah, it's definitely missing some arms. It's in rough shape, but as far as being a potential parts machine for the one that I have, that's really, really quite comical. So given that up there, that big door means maneuvering hay wagons kind of up and around awkwardly, not being able to get the tractor super close, maybe dropping the wagon and pushing it forward, then to use hay elevators to get it in this space. Trying to think if there's any world, even though it's not using gravity, of pulling a hay wagon up here and having a bucket brigade where people are chucking hay through this space. I'm going to assume it doesn't make sense, especially for my own memory, that it'd be hard to pull a wagon up kitty corner here. Might be able to do it with beefy enough tires and just pull straight across this, but it's a heck of a hump. It's really built with a ramp like this. But otherwise, going all the way around that stone wall. And here's the field from the road view that I see all the time. It goes so much more over that hill, which I knew it did. I just had never been up there before until we just drove around it. I drove around with the landowner. It's the main access way here, which is nice. Yeah, don't have to be right in the middle of her logistics, driveway, etc., other than better barn access. But it loops all the way down this way to show me some wet areas. I have seen the line where the previous folks haven't hit it. And the other farmers are, you know, a town away. They do so many acres, and they're headed the other direction for a lot of it. So, well, it's another day, and I'm honing in on a decision here. I should say it's the next day. So I am out walking this new field, which again, I've probably said it plenty of times. The footprint is 15 acres. I think the optimistic hayable footprint is like 12, maybe 12 and a half. There's some wet spots. There's some areas I'm going to try to see what I can get on efficiently. Spoke with the folks that have been haying it up to this point. Other than saying wetness and rocks, which I'm used to, they really gave glowing recommendations for this field and said it's this really fine grass. I don't know if they had an ID on it. I'm curious to see when it starts heading out, if I can tell. But a really fine grass that they said horse people go nuts for. And I love finer grass hay. So I did a lot of number crunching, which maybe I'll talk more about. But right now, I'm out walking it and doing due diligence other than the loop I made yesterday. You can see with the tire tracks, just to check rocks, because they did warn about there being a good number of rocks, but most people don't go out and stake them, understandably. But I do it as hopefully cheap mower insurance. But yeah, here's this whole corner down here that is usually too wet, gets a lot of shade. The grass quality is not great. So I don't even think I'm going to try for this corner this year, pragmatically. Cut the line more up here and stay where the grass is nice and the sun is nice. Okay, before I start huffing and puffing too much, because I'm always out of shape this time of year. You know, in talking with previous hay folks, they did confirm this didn't get fertilized last year, but they fertilized it 2 years ago. So, oh, I see a rock. My really rough math here is thinking if I call this 12 hayable acres with no fertilizer and probably getting on this early-ish, because my end of town is just like a mile or two that way. So I'd be doing this on my way through. If I roughly put in half yield as a placeholder for first cut, thinking no fertility, doing it earlier, you know, that puts me at like 50 bales an acre for 12 acres. So what I'm trying to figure out is dropping another 6 acres, sadly, of what I've already fertilized, or delaying some of it, brush hogging it if I need to, of the other acreage, that is, the smaller fields, the stuff that is nice, but is a far cry of this kind of sun and efficiency, to pick this up and to not go crazy and be buried with hay here. We had still testing out that barn in the field and everything else. So if I kind of treat that first cut like second cut yields, Could probably do this whole field in half. 6 acres at once is, I think, about my bottleneck. But doing the split in half to pull hopefully nice quality, nice looking stuff, just a lighter yield of it. Get a sense for the farm, get a sense for the land, footprint, and barn use. That feels like it spreads my risk out pretty nicely. I will say, even though I'm missing this like a week after fertilizing, but in time to see the rocks is really nice. If I was contacted, you know, June, something like that, God, plowing out here, going slow, mowing high, etc., trying to find rocks in that would not be easy. So there's going to be a decent number of stakes here, but that's okay. I think the rest of the field makes up for it. I will say a lot of good clover in this as far as nitrogen fixing. So yeah, it's clearly missed fertilizer, but I don't know, legumes or something should help quality too. Here's a corner that traditionally is too wet, so I'm not counting it as part of the acreage. Well, it's in the afternoon after running and getting another bundle of tomato stakes or survey stakes, because I was a little naive at how few I would need here. There's a lot of rocks to mark, a lot of gooners, as some people call them. The landowner, I think I said before, actually spray painted a lot of them pink a couple of years ago, so they're easy to find right now. But I ran out of stakes, and so on the one hand, it's a lot of rocks to mark. On the other hand, the density per acre, I'd say, is less than a lot of the other fields I deal with. You know, a lot of rocks, but they're nice and marked. They're spaced out. Yes, a little bit annoying to have to mow and ted and rake around. But again, per acre, like I've got some fields, I can think of one that's got 15 stakes in a 3-acre field. So we're doing a lot better than that. And now that it's nicer later in the day, it's sunny, you can just, I mean, I knew this field was going to have almost no shade, and you can just tell. I mean, there's the tree line over there is across a pasture, so there's almost no tree line on that side of the field. That is west. And then the east side is downhill. There'll be a little bit of a shade line on that side of the field, but the rest of it is going to get sun from sun up to sundown with finer grasses. That makes up for rocks as far as I'm concerned.